Hello everyone and welcome back. I am as always Inquisitor Aura, and this is How to Roleplay in World of Warcraft, and this week we're going to be taking a look at the Blood Knights of Silvermoon. Now recognized as a sub-unit within the ranks of Azeroth's Paladins, the Blood Knights of Silvermoon have not always had a sterling reputation. With roots in brutality and theft based in need, they have since become some of the Light's most vaunted defenders. The Blood Knights were founded during a very dark time in Silvermoon's history. Having lost their initial faith in the Light, with the Scourge invasion and the destruction of the Sunwell, the Light did not come as easily to the typically magically inclined Blood Elves. Their faith having been shaken so badly that they all but lost the ability to call on its power, many came to view the Light with contempt, as it had failed to protect the elves and their homeland in a spectacular fashion. With the assumed abandonment of the Light, the elves realized they needed a new way to access it. Kael'thas gave them that by capturing the Naru Meru in Tempest Keep and sending it back to Silvermoon, where it was systematically drained of its power. Through a long and arduous process, Meru was eventually pacified, and with this, Grand Magister Rameth realized that Silvermoon could have a unique fighting force of warriors infused with the Light, fighters who would master it instead of serving it. To this end, he recruited Lady Liadrin, who had been the High Priestess prior to the Scourge invasion and, disillusioned with the path she had taken, chose to take up the sword and her anger out on the Scourge remnants in Eversong Forest. With her experience in using the Light, her recent combat training, and a promise that the Light would never abandon her again, she became the first of the new Blood Knights. This is the heart of what it was to be a Blood Knight at the Order's inception. They were not born of some altruistic ideal. They were weapons, tempered by unspeakable loss and sorrow, forged in vengeance and blood, who mastered the power they stole. It is also important to recognize that the creation of the Blood Knights was highly criticized. The Farstriders in particular were opposed to the very idea of the Blood Knights for ethical reasons, believing the method they employed to maintain the power they commanded to be immoral. This sentiment was echoed in the general populace, many of whom outright reviled this new order. The first tottering steps of the Order were quite difficult. Because of the distorted relationship between the elves and Meru, many Blood Knights had to overcome some physical and mental roadblocks to use their power. Headaches, madness, and reawakened emotional issues being common amongst them. But Meru's recalcitrance ultimately proved to be a lie, set into motion by Adal to bring the Blood Elves willingly back to the Light. Meru became a willing sacrifice, and while the elves believed they had been stealing his power, it was, in fact, being freely given. Now the Blood Knights draw on the Light much like their brethren in the Silver Hand. Now that we've gotten through all of that, let's take a look at some role-playing tips for role-playing a Blood Knight. And the first thing that every new and aspiring Blood Knight role-player needs to understand are the trials. The trials are something that every Blood Knight has undergone. These trials guide your promotion through the ranks. You are not simply a full-fledged Blood Knight Master, it is a title and an honor that you have to work for. Based on your character's rank, you should have a pretty good idea of your character's general combat skill, military knowledge, and light-wielding competency. You may also be assigned to a senior Blood Knight mentor. A Knight Squire RP type would be fairly common in such an order and could be quite entertaining. The second most important thing it is important to remember is that the Blood Knights are a brotherhood. You are a knight, a noble. You work within a strict code of shared ethics and act as a part of a greater whole. You are a military unit. You are not a one-man army, and you are fighting for the Order and for the good of Silvermoon's citizens. Remember this always and act accordingly. While the Blood Elves as a whole are known for their rather hedonistic and selfish tendencies, That is not the case with Blood Knights. Blood Knights have a tremendous amount of focus, self-discipline, and willpower. Remember that you have trained your mind and your body relentlessly to call on the power that you have. You remember what it was like to have been thought to have been stealing this power, and now that it's being given to you freely, nothing has changed. While there are side effects to using it, any Blood Knight who was the first in the order are going to feel these side effects. You are not weak-minded. You are supremely in control of everything that you do, and you should make sure that your role-playing reflects that. Another important thing to understand is your relationship with the other primary groups associated with Silvermoon City, specifically the Farstriders and the Magisters. While your relationship with the Farstriders remains strained regardless of the fact that the light willingly works with you, your roots to them are still extraordinarily immoral. However, your relationship with the Magisters is extremely close, given their assistance and wisdom in establishing your order. Blood Knights are often accompanied by Magisters when out in the field for arcane support, and would generally have a good rapport with magisterial characters. And last but not least, this is the biggest role-playing crime I think I've witnessed myself personally coming from Blood Knight roleplayers, and that is that you are not the Silvermoon Guard. Now, many of you might have had roots in your backstory as a member of the Silvermoon Guard, which makes a lot of sense. Being a militant order in itself, you would have a lot of the things that potential Blood Knights would be looking for. That being said, once you have joined the Blood Knights, you are no longer a part of the Guard. You are not responsible for policing the common populace. You are an elite knight, a noble elf, whose duties often takes you far beyond Silvermoon's borders. So even if you are in Silvermoon, you're generally there on a rest, taking a break, because there are many, many fights scattered across Azeroth where your services are more desperately needed than in Silvermoon. It is not your job to babysit the locals. It is your job as a Blood Knight and your honor to defend them. Anyways, that is going to be it for me for this week. Thank you guys so much for watching. Remember, if you like what you see and you want to see more, don't forget to hit that like button, comment below, and subscribe. Make sure you ring that little bell to stay up to date on my new content. And if you want to donate, make sure you check out my Patreon. The link is in the description below. Thanks again so much for watching. Have a great week, have a great weekend, and I will see you again in Azeroth.